how the Cameroon's civil service looks like. We are looking at the A to Z of Cameroon's public service. Who do they work for? There's some misconceptions about who a civil servant is and how the public service actually works. We are looking at this with our panelists who are in the house, and we have Apostle Ambe Valentine, who is our permanent consultant in the house. Good evening, Apostle. We are glad to have you.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Good evening, Cameroonians. Welcome to this wonderful edition of today's program. We are excited to be here and also to educate Cameroonians on this very sensitive topic. Stay glued to your screens as we bring you very, very vital information.
Okay, Clinton Lekunze is also with us in this edition of the program. He is a graduate from ENAM, who is going to be enlightening us on how Cameroon's public service looks like and how it functions. We're glad to have you with us this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu. Good evening to all Cameroonians. Good evening from the economic capital of Cameroon, Douala. Good evening to everybody. I am glad to be here once more for us to talk on this educative topic, and we pray you all to give your attention for this wonderful topic. It's going to be great. Thank you.
Yeah, not greeted the people of the Cock Republic.
No, the Cock Republic, we are one. All the members of the Cock Republic, especially the president of the Cock Republic, everybody's tuned to the TV for this wonderful edition.
Okay, we are also expecting the arrival into our studios of Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, who is an educationist, an entrepreneur, and also a politician. He's caught in traffic. He just indicated to us that he's on his way. He'll definitely be joining us. Apostle Ambe Valentine, we're talking about Cameroon civil service and public service, rather, and who they are working for. When we talk about the public service in Cameroon, what comes to the mind of a common man?
Well, talking about public service, a professional that works for the government at the local, at the national level. That's the definition. A professional that works for the government either at the local or at the national level. That is the definition of a public or a civil servant. And in our Cameroonian context, we have a form of government that is a unitary state, and we work at the national level because there are certain countries which are federations. People work at the federal level, people work at the state level, and people work at the local level. But in Cameroon, we have the local level and the national level. So a civil servant is a professional who works for the government at the local or the national level. I think that's the definition. Okay,
he works for the government. You are defining a civil servant.
Yes, that's a civil servant.
Yes, but the public service. What do we mean by the public service?
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu. When we're talking about public service, especially the public service of Cameroon, as we are talking of, we need to look at the law that defines public service. If we're talking about the law that defines public service in Cameroon, we are going to talk about decree number 94/199 of 7 October 1994 on the general status of civil service in general. That is, the decree has been amended and supplemented by decree number 2000/287 of 12 October 2000. Looking at this decree, you are going to see that the public service of Cameroon is being, looking at the public service of Cameroon, having taken regard to our constitution in Article 2, Sub 2 of the Civil Status General Rules. It says that our public service of Cameroon is being supervised by the President of the Republic. And looking at the public service in general, we are talking about the government sector. Government sector. As Apostle Ambe rightly defined, we know the government sector cannot work without public servants, which he rightfully defined. If you look at the definition of public service in Article 3 of that general rule, we are going to, it is in compliance with the definition Apostle Ambe gave.
Okay, that is the public service. Apostle Ambe talked about people who serve at the national and at the local level.
Professionals who work with the
Professionals, yes. But what is the perception that Cameroonians have of those who work in the public service? Talking about civil servants.
Yes, talking about civil servants, people have diverse views. You cannot sum everyone's view or thoughts about the civil service. But we're going to talk about a majority of Cameroonians, based on our experiences and based on the interviews we have had with individuals. Many Cameroonians do not speak well about civil servants or those who render services in the public. You will hear they say they are either serving the government and serving themselves, but they were designed to serve the community. They were designed to serve the people of the state. For instance, everybody trained by the government, whether in the teaching field, administrative sector, the military, the judiciary, or wherever you find yourself in the civil service, you are being appointed by the state to serve the interest of the people, not your interest or the interest of the government only. A lot of civil servants serve their interest and the interest of the government in question rather than serving the interest of the people. And that's the reason why they cry. There's an outcry from the masses who are very, very worried, because when they go to the offices where government has assigned these people to render services, they are not giving the services due them. Instead, the people serve themselves. And what do I mean by them serving themselves? They serve themselves because in the first place, these people will not render services for you for free that government has been paying them salary for. By so doing, they are collecting double interest for a particular office. You are not going to sign a document without you being asked to drop something. Meanwhile, the government paid that individual in the office to sign that document, to stamp that paper, and also to help the individual go through that process. And this is where you have that challenge. That's the first thing I say, they are serving themselves. Number two, there are some particular protocols the state has put when it comes to the time management of civil servants. Most of them walk into the office sometimes 10 a.m., sometimes 11 a.m. when work is to start by sometimes 8 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes some of them don't even go to their offices within the week. And you go there, sometimes you'll be running up and down. This person is not in the office, is not in the office, not in the office. Meanwhile, the state knows that the individual is sitting in this particular office to render the services that have been asked to give to the masses. So there is this worry that I say they are serving themselves and they are equally serving the state. Serving the government is the fact that they are there to defend government interests, which is one of their basic responsibilities. We cannot stand or fight against that. Their responsibility is to defend government interests. But one of the other things we have also seen that is that you cannot be defending the government interests at the expense of the people whom the government asked you to serve, whom the government asks you to render services. And sometimes they will violate the same laws that they have established on ground because they want to defend the interest of the government. So on that note, I think that there's supposed to be a kind of adjustment and a follow-up to see how the civil service or civil servant or public servant render services to the public and to the individuals and the citizens of the country whom they are being sent to.
Okay, they're supposed to serve the common man.
Yes,
that's what you mean. Yes, but what accounts for this attitude described by Apostle Ambe, where people are recruited, appointed to serve the common man, yet he thinks, going by what many persons are saying, that these persons serve themselves and government, and not necessarily the public.
Thank you very much. When you say the people serve themselves and not the public, which are supposed to serve, I'm going to say that to an extent, I want us to be very objective.
Okay.
Because when you say like that, it's like sweeping generalization, like putting all the civil servants in the same shoe. You know that you cannot evaluate that the civil servants, they are serving themselves 100%, because actually, we are not denying the fact that there are some civil servants, unscrupulous civil servants that are not really serving as they are supposed to serve. But now, you know that we Cameroonians, we have an attitude of judging many civil servants without really understanding maybe the activities of the civil servant or the activities which they have been assigned to do. For example, I have seen situations where maybe some public users are putting civil servants of the time which they are supposed to come, that they have not even understood maybe the time that is due, the time that they are supposed to. The civil servants, the civil service is having categories, and not all the categories of persons, maybe not all categories of persons answer present at the same time. It depends on the services. For example, if you visit maybe the military services at any hour, you are going to see somebody there, but you will not expect that maybe government offices, the time that has been scheduled for the government, some government offices, we are not going to expect that people are going to come maybe before time, or they are going to leave before time. So, despite the fact that some civil servants or some public servants, as we can call, despite the fact that some really do not save as they are called to save, there are some. The majority of them, they are really doing work as
now,
supposed to be.
You have described what the public service is according to the laws of the nation. How do we become a public servant in Cameroon, or a civil servant?
Thank you very much. It's a very important question. I'm going to say that to become a civil servant in Cameroon, that is access to civil service in Cameroon is open to everyone without discrimination. If you look at Article 12 of the decree of the General Statute of Civil Service, you are going to see that Article 12 has explained that access to civil service is open to everybody. But though access is open to everybody, there are some specific conditions that have been put down, or some restrictions that have been laid down for somebody to be eligible to work in the civil service. For among these conditions, I'm going to start with Article 13 of that statute. Article 13 of that statute talk of the principle of eligibility, that is being eligible to work in the public service. If you look at 13 sub 1A of that statute, you are going to see that they have talked about the condition for you to become a civil servant, which talk of nationality. That is, you must be a Cameroonian national. That is, you must have Cameroonian citizenship. What do we mean? By law, we are saying that for you to work in the public service, you must be a Cameroonian. But the law now, a foreigner cannot work in the public service. But the law now has not specified if you become a national, if only nationals, maybe by birth, should become civil servants. Mean that those who have acquired Cameroonian citizenship can also become civil servants, because they have not been restricted. Then now, if you look at that same article 13 sub 1B, it talk about age, regulation of age. Now, the civil service has specified that for you to become a civil servant in Cameroon, you must, there are 4 categories of the civil service, from category A, B, C, and D. For category A and B civil servants, you must be at least 17 years and at most 35 years. But however, this the age can be regulated by decree of the Prime Minister. Now, for that is if you look at for category C and D, you must be at least 13 years and at most 30 years. That is for category C and D. What do they mean? They are saying that for you to become a civil servant, you should neither be too young or too old. That is, the public service recruit in a way that they give provision for the worker to work for at least, they are previewing that the worker should work for at least 20 years before going for, you should at least put 20 years before going for retirement. Now, but you see that the PM, upon a proposal of the Minister of Public Service and Administrative Reform, can have access to extend this age limit. We have seen situations where the ages of doctors in the university, they have been extended so that they can serve as lecturers in the universities.
Now, there is also another requirement for good character. When we talk about requirement for good character, we are saying that applicants or those who wish to join the civil service, they must, there are some crimes that if they have committed and have been sentenced, let's say by like theft, corruption, fraud, and the rest, and you have been sentenced for at least 6 months, more than 6 months, you are not supposed to join the Cameroonian civil service again. Then, when you talk about...
then you talk about morality checks?
Yes, I've talked about morality. I've talked about morality. Because in summary, we are saying that you must be of good conduct before you become a civil servant. Now, there is also another modality talk about ban, that you must, some people who have been banned from wearing any decoration are not supposed to become civil servants.
Yeah. At what age should civil servants go on retirement?
On what age? I am coming. I've not. Let me.
Time. He has to also.
Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to finish. Let me finish the last. The last requirement, which talk about the fitness for military training. You know that if you look at the decree of February 2nd of 1969, that is degree number 69/GF/6 of /6. It explained that for you to be a civil servant, you must undertake what they call formation militaire, that is military training. It has specified for some jobs, for some vocational schools in Cameroon, like the National School of Administration and Magistracy, ENAM, the National School of Agronomy, CUST. Though there are some that within some time now, they have not been given the opportunity to do that military training. So these are some conditions for you to become a civil servant.
Okay. Now, once you become a civil servant, you serve the nation for how long?
Once you become a civil servant, you are supposed to serve the nation for at least 20 years. That is the age in which the law has specified. Now, the law also specified that civil servants can go for retirement. That is, civil servants of category A and B can go for retirement at 55, category C and D 50. But a decree of the President of the Republic, you see that 2 years ago the President of the Republic decided to extend to 5 years for category A and B. That is 60 years before you can go for retirement.
Now, Apostle Ambe Valentine, you just listened to Lekunze give us some of the things that one needs to meet to be able to be recruited or fulfill to become a civil servant in Cameroon, so that you can serve in the public service. Among them, he talks about this issue of ensuring that you have good conduct. Yes, are these reflected by the services rendered to the people by our public servants?
Well, I think the criteria that they gave for those who are qualified to work in the civil service concerning their conduct is not sufficient enough, because they said if you have served any prison term or you are involved in any act of corruption or in any act of thievery or theft, then you are definitely not qualified to work in the civil service. I sometimes get confused because I'm wondering the routes which these authorities we have today who are involved in corruption, in theft, and in all kinds of manipulation of public funds, they are being arrested in office and sent to prison. I don't understand the route they pass through to come into that office. What are the parameters put in place to ascertain if somebody who has never gone to prison is not a criminal? What are the parameters put in place to also know that somebody who has not gone to prison is not corrupt? We have seen people steal and buy marks in the university. Anybody who buys marks in the university is a potential thief in the future. And we don't go to check the records of people who pass through universities, how they manage to get their degrees before they come. we swindle them because of the connections we have and bring them into office. If at all enough scrutiny was done before they enter into the civil service, we will not have much or most of the civil servants being involved in acts of corruption and acts of theft, in acts of manipulations, because the system is so bad in such a way that when Lekunze said that it's not every civil servant, we did not say every civil servant. We say there is a majority of them, and many persons are crying, and the appraisal of many Cameroonians when it comes to civil servants is not good. From the primary school headmistress to the governor to the ministers of the state, they have very, 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 very dilapidating records about their integrity. So when we talk about people being very, very clean before entering the civil service, I think that is just a clause to blindfold the ordinary man to think that you are competent. We have seen cases in the country where individuals forge 206 ghost salaries and were being paid for almost about 10 years. How did that man manage to enter into the finance sector? We have seen where former ministers have swindled billions from the finance. How did such a person get the opportunity to sit even at the place of finance? We've seen a case where a former minister of finance also is under a hot seat right now, and they are trying to point fingers at him concerning embezzlement and other things. What are the parameters? Because I think the challenge is, what are the things they put in order or before to ascertain if somebody is pure, if somebody is faithful, if somebody is decent, or if somebody is competent for a job. Because I think if at all we were doing a good work at the bottom, we will not have what we are facing today. Okay. Almost everybody has a dirty sheet somewhere that is covering.
Okay. Now, competitive examination, access to into public service. We're talking about concourse here, types of administrative or competitive concourse. That is where many persons actually have a problem with. Many Cameroonians today think that if I were to qualify to get into one of these big schools, I must have some connection somewhere. I must have some money to pay for a place in some of these schools.
Mr. Leo, that is a question where I think all the Cameroonians, they are putting a question mark on it. But the first thing I am going to say is that we first of all need to be educated on the competitive examinations before, that is the methods of recruitment, because many people talk about maybe taking money to go and buy exams somewhere and the rest, whereas without even knowing the formalities of recruitment. I would like us to really labor on this point on the competitive examination. But before I go to that, I am going to say something concerning what Apostle Ambe said. Now, Apostle, you know, when you talk about ministers that have maybe embezzled and the rest, what are the conditions do you think we can put in place to ascertain the conduct of somebody before recruiting that person? A good conduct person today can be a very bad conduct person tomorrow. So the conditions, you look at the conditions, you see that at times we might maybe be thinking that A is A, whereas A is Z, maybe at the time of recruitment.
Maybe Apostle just meant that it should be a little bit more rigorous.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
So looking at the competitive examination for access into public service, we see that the competitive examinations, they are being regulated by Article 15 of the General Code of Civil Service. And Article 15 of the General Code of Civil Service talk about varied methods of recruitment. We have in the public service, we have varied methods of recruitment. The first method of recruitment is done by qualification based. When we talk about qualification based method, we are talking about situations where people are recruited into the public service looking at their qualification, the qualification of the certificate. That is, you are recruited based on your certificate. If you look at Article 15 of that code, you are going to see. I am not going to labor on the recruitment on election because that one has been abolished in Cameroon, because at first we had recruitment by election where people elect people that maybe they ask a particular tribe that give me somebody, they just elect that go and be there. Now, the most common means of recruitment in Cameroon is done through competitive examination. That is what we commonly call concours in Cameroon. So, now, the Prime Minister has set a decree, a legal regime for methods of recruiting civil servants. That decree is being governed by the, is being regulated by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Public Service and Administrative Reform. Now, how are people recruited? People are recruited. How do we recruit people into the civil service? To recruit you in the public service or civil service, we must talk about the budget of the country. The government recruits based on the budget, and they recruit based on the needs. The government do not recruit just because maybe people need jobs and the rest. Various ministerial departments need to apply to the Ministry of Public Service. We are lacking in this department, we are lacking in this department, and at the end, the Minister of Public Service is going to look at the needs of the various departments, and when you look at the needs of the various departments, they don't just go into recruitment, they now look at the budget, that is the resources that they are having. When they look at the resources now, before competitive examinations are launched, which we are going to, which we have 4 types of administrative competitive examination. That is, if you look at Article 7, Article 7 of that statute talk on 4 type of competitive examination. We have direct competitive examination, we have professional competitive examination, we have special competitive examination, and we have competitive examination by scholarship. But the most common one is the direct competitive examination, which we are going to discuss in due time if permitted.
If time permits, okay. So this issue of buying places and then getting access to these schools using connection is just a misconception that does not exist.
It is, to me, when you say it's a misconception that does not exist, it is logical to an extent. I think we have seen the conditions for the recruitment of civil servants. Maybe when we are going to talk about the competitive, the organization of the competitive examination proper, which we are going to talk about the writing phases.
Who does the organization?
The organization is done by the Minister of Public Service and Administrative Reforms.
For all the ministries?
For all the ministries, but for competitive examinations to recruit people in the educational sector like Ewane and the Nsah, which is done by Minister of Higher Education. Yes. So when you are going to look, when we are going to look at the conditions, you are going to see that if we are talking about recruitment into the public service and competitive examination, you are going to see that for competitive examination, those who are recruited in category A and B, they are organizing their test. They have 4 subjects to write when it comes to writing. 4 subjects to write and 2 orals exam. So now, when you look at those conditions, the 4 subjects to write, what is the eliminatory mark for those 4 papers? Because you might score very high in one subject, and in another subject you score very, very low. You know that some people, they have the tendencies of maybe specifying in one subject and allowing the other. And the public service in Cameroon has made it clear that for you to be recruited in the public service, you must be at least bilingual. That is why there is a bilingual test for any competitive examination for those who are going for category A and B. That is an oral test. French is taken by English speaking, and English is taken by the French speaking Cameroonians. And we are going to see that the prerogative of the Minister of Public Service and Administrative Reform is to organize these exams in a way that all the Cameroonians, they are going to be given the opportunity to take in these exams, provided they have fulfilled the general conditions. That is, when we talk about launching of the exam, which is done by the minister, we know that launching all concours in Cameroon, according to the law, they must be launched at least 3 months before the organization of those exams. Then, now, after the launching of those concours, the Minister of Public Service is going to draw up a list of candidates that are eligible to sit in for this exam. And after doing this, the Minister of Public Service, according to the law, he put up this list at least 10 days before the date of the exam. And every candidate that is going for direct examination must produce a file. Every candidate must produce a file. And those files...
Now, we may not have time to look into that. I just want you to provide clarification here. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. I want to appreciate your program and the topic. It's very educative. I have a little worry. There are some people who wrote concours before entering public service, but were sent in as contract workers. Those who didn't sit for concours equally were sent as contract workers. Please, I wish you expatiate on that. Secondly, when you're a contract worker, after 10 to 15 years, you are automatically changed to a civil servant, but that isn't happening since. So please, can you explain? Bisong is writing from Limbe. What's happening here?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bisong. He is having a little bit of mix-up. There is a difference between a civil servant and a contract worker of the government. The contract worker of the government is being selected by the Ministry of Public Service or the ministerial department that is concerned. Now, these people that do not, contract workers are not selected based on examination, competitive exam. There are civil servants that are selected based on competitive exams. And now, looking at the new contract of contract workers, the new contract, their new contracts, it specifies that contract workers are recruited for an indefinite period. They give them a probation for about 6 months, and after 6 months now they sign a contract with the government for an indefinite period. And now contract workers, they are being regulated. They are not regulated by the civil statutes, civil service statutes. They are regulated by the labor codes. They are contract workers of the government, but governed by the labor codes. They are not civil servants. You cannot write a competitive exam and you are sent as a contract worker.
Okay.
Yes.
So those guys are just selected, or how do they get them?
The ministerial department at times do the selection maybe from the study of FIST, or at times they do from call of application, not negotiation, call of application, study of file or call of application at times. Now,
Apostle Ambe Valentin, we're talking about gaining access into some of these big schools so that you become a civil servant or a contract worker. And I really want you to, are you very comfortable with the procedure? Are you comfortable with the way things are done and those who finally get recruited as civil servants to work in the public service?
No, Mr. Leo, there's a lot of injustice when it comes to the issue of recruiting civil servants, especially through professional competitive exams to the civil service. We have known that out of practical experience, every ordinary Cameroonian has, in one way or the other, who has attempted writing these public exams will tell you categorically that it has nothing to do with your intelligence. For instance, if we say it's 100%, we can say at least 20% people can make it out of intelligence. The remaining 80% is based on who you know and who you are connected to. Why do I say this? I say this because I've seen a lot of persons who have passed the orals, the written part of exams. When it comes to the orals, the same questions that they are asking them in the written part, they are unable to answer at the level of the orals. And I know of persons who have given money, huge amount of money, for their documents to be followed, and when the documents were followed, at the end of the day, they got the exam. You sometimes get confused, and you begin to ask questions whether it is actually academic prowess that makes you enter into this public service, or it has to do with some godfather somewhere. Because to be frank and sincere, sometimes even if you see the behavior of some of the civil servants, you wonder if I thought they actually passed those exams for entering into the offices they occupy. Because I have, from experience, met a lot of persons who have written these public exams, beginning from the police concours, military, the ENAM, the IRIC, the MIA, and the rest, and they will tell them, my brother, when it comes to these public exams, you must have a godfather. I can tell you that a very few percentage of people make their way successfully in these exams by chance. Not that someone will just succeed in the exam without having somebody well placed ahead. I know of people investing millions. Then I begin to ask myself, if we're investing 3 to 4 million to pass the public exam, what is the essence of the mind? Because the mind is no longer needed, since money can easily buy your way to the top. I have seen very intelligent, smart people come from broke homes, attempt these exams, and they fail. And when you hear that somebody has succeeded, the person must be linked up to some person who is linked up to some person who is linked up. I think if my brother Lekunze is very sincere, and he doesn't want to taint his image as a faithful Cameroonian, he will tell us with all sincerity that even though probably he made it way too successfully through a genuine path by using his knowledge, not everyone, as a matter of fact, 80% of them who have found Bitcoin, because if you are talking that people who have, some of them have defended thesis, some of them have done degree programs, some of them have done master's degree programs, and you cannot tell me that you will finish a master's degree program without defending your thesis before a jury. So what is special about this ENAM, IRIC jury, that when you go there, every information in your head disappears? These are the million questions we keep asking every day, and every Cameroonian who understands this very well will know very well there's some game being played. For instance, the most recent result is the one that came from ENAM, that we had almost half of a village that succeeded. I'm sure the most intelligent individuals in Cameroon are coming from one particular clan in Cameroon, while the rest of the people are dunces and know nothing as far as academic is concerned. So we just have to be straight and forward here to tell Cameroonians that, to some extent, yes, people can enter into these professional schools by what they write, but 3/4 of the persons who enter there, they are pre-arranged programs before they enter into those institutions. Yeah,
but does that already play negatively on the people's desire to wanting to join and serve the nation?
Yes, it's automatically with value, because you can't be writing an exam with a knowledge you know you won't succeed. There is that fear, there's that psychological intimidation, there is that complex that, well, let me just try. If you ask an ordinary poor child who does not have any link or connection to write exam, they will tell her, let me just do. But if you see somebody who knows where he's going to pass, will tell you that I must pass that exam. It's sometimes the result, you know the result before you write the exams. That's how it is.
Okay. Good evening. Please, I wish to know if Apostle Ambe is a politician or a man of God. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. I love your program. It really educates so many Cameroonians. May I know then where they appointed when they were already convicted? Ato is writing from Bomenda. There is no proof to show that most ministers have been to prison. Good evening, Mr. Leo and the panelists. I want to appreciate your program and the topic. It's very educative. Okay, Bisong, I got that one already. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Your program is interesting. Please ask the public service worker who is it that after a recruitment exam, majority of the candidates who pass come from one area of the country. Does it mean these are the best students who wrote the exams? Beatrice is writing from Mutengene. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the crew on board. Did our Minister of Territorial Administration also go through these exams? Mr. Lekunze just mentioned. Good evening, fellow Cameroonians. The program is very important, but I wish to ask what is the meaning of A to Z Cameroon Public Service. Thanks. I'm Brandon writing from Loom, Littoral Region. The alphabet starts from A and ends with Z. So what it means is that all you need to know about Cameroon's public service. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I salute you and your panelists. Ask Mr. Lekunze why the public service is full of Cameroonians from the center, south, and east regions of the country. Is that these people are most clever? Pajon is writing from Limbe. So many persons are asking the same question. Now, once we become a civil servant in Cameroon, are there some measures that actually controls, evaluates, monitors the effectiveness of what these workers are supposed to do vis-a-vis serving the public? Are there some, can they be sanctioned? Can they be stopped from working? Can they be sacked?
Yes, Mr. Dio, there are sanctions, there are conditions, there are regulations that work with Cameroonian civil servants. Now, all the civil services in Cameroon, they have laws that regulates their services. They have laws that regulate their services. That is why for each service there is a department for control. That is an inspection department that they control the time and the working conditions of the civil servants. Now, we Cameroonians, some of we Cameroonians, we are quick in concluding that this is a civil servant. We have been seeing these civil servants maybe in the quartier. The civil servant is not working, the civil servant is not going to work early, and the rest. There are some special conditions that maybe they give room to some civil servants, maybe to absent work for some time, like when you are sick, the Minister of Public Service can authorize or can give you a sick leave for some time. After recovery, they can give you some time to rest before coming. We have situations of lift. We have situations where breastfeeding mothers, they regulate their time of work and the rest. So there are inspection departments in all the ministerial departments to look at the work of the civil servants, whether they are doing well or not.
Yeah, but why do people think that once you become a civil servant, you respect for the regulations, like you are saying, actually counts very little, because a civil servant will say, you can't do anything to me because I'm a civil servant. I may come to work early or late. I have to be there, compared with what obtains in the private sector. Why is there that some level of laxity?
Mr. Leo, I will tell you that was then.
Okay.
When you look at the way things are changing now, the dismarried department of the Ministry of Public Service is working very hard to see that they regulate these situations. That mentality of I'm a civil servant, I'll go to work at any time, I'm a ward, I'll go to any time. That mentality, Cameroonians, is a mentality that Cameroonians maybe they carried before, but for now, you are going to see that as the days are going, things are changing. That mentality is fast dying. You are going. I will not tell you that the mentality is not existing, but the level at which those people or the people with those mentalities carry it to the public service is very, very low.
Okay, good to be Mr. Liu. Are civil servants allowed to resign from their duty, most especially the uniform officers? John is writing from Tarikon in Bamenda.
Yes, civil servants, you can resign. You can resign from duty. That is termination of duty. Yes. Termination can be done by resignation, can be done by layoff, dismissal, and the rest. Then you ask something. Somebody asks a question. Why is it that some particular people of a particular region, or where they write exam, we are going to have many people from a particular region? You know that in every concours in Cameroon, in every recruitment in Cameroon, we have a law, a decree has made the Prime Minister to intervene in many recruitment in Cameroon. That is, the PM is empowered, that is to determine the quota of places reserved for regions. We have 10 regions in Cameroon. They are having 10 regions in Cameroon, and maybe during a competitive exam, if a particular region has overwritten the exam, if the number of people from a particular region, they have overwritten, there is a means of regulating to see that they take the eligibility. That is what we call in Cameroon regional balance. Because if you look at the regional balance in Cameroon, you see that the regulations state that for recruitment into the public service, the percentage, each percentage is fixed to each region. And how are these percentages fixed? The percentage are fixed according to the population of that region and according to the school attendance. That's what the law says. The school attendance and the population of that place. That is why at the end, the Prime Minister has fixed it. The Prime Minister decree fixed the percentage for the various 10 regions. That is why in the East region, for East region, we have 4%. For Adamawa region, we have 5%. For the South region, we have 5%. For the North region, we have 7%. Southwest, we have 8%. Northwest, we have 12%. Littoral, 12%. West, 13%. And Center, 15%. And the far north, 18%. We are going to see that in many instances, these quotas are being respected. But now there are situations where there are regions that the people, the number of persons that register for this exam are not even up to the number of people they need. What do? They have now divided it into 4 pools. Pool A, pool 1, pool 2, pool 3, and pool 4. If you look at pool 1, you are going to see that pool 1 carries Adamawa, North and Far North region. Pool 2 is carrying Center, South and East region. Pool 3 is carrying Littoral and West. And pool 4 is Northwest and Southwest. So you are going to notice that at times, let's take an example, the Far North region, for example, which maybe people shy away from concourse, you are going to see that their quota is going to be shifted to their pool. They have up to 17% of...
Yeah. You are giving a general perspective or, yes, what ought to happen. That is what you're saying. But specifically, these persons who are writing are talking about 3 regions. It's what pool? What's the pool?
They talk about the Center, South, and East. That is pool 2.
Pool 2, yes, but people are specific with pool 2. Having the majority. And somebody says, are these the most important Cameroonians we have?
The EX.
It depends on the criteria in which the person has taken to determine that it is pool 2 dominating.
We have just been joined by Dr. Nick Ngwanyam. We announced earlier that he was caught in traffic. He is finally here. Good evening, doctor, and welcome. We're talking about the public service in Cameroon and civil servants generally. You were...
I was a civil servant. Yeah.
Did you resign? How did it go?
Oh, thank you very much. I'm very sorry that I'm coming so late. It's 8 p.m. now. I'm 1 hour late, and I was stuck in traffic.
Okay.
And I just realized that when it rains in Douala, during the peak hours, be it in the morning or in the evening, you are caught in traffic, and it's very bad. So it's taken me 2 hours to come from St. Louis, Douala to Fengu, Drombange here. I'm so sorry about that. And I was hoping to be here at the planting of the decor so that we'll know, and now I'm lost. I don't know what you've said. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'll just try to do what I can do. If I repeat what has been said, please forgive me. If I sound a little bit out of topic, please forgive me. So yes, the civil service in Cameroon, let me just step back a little bit and say that God created us for 2 things, and 2 major things: to work and to pray. That's what God created us for, to work and to pray. So working is very important, and by prayer, worshiping Him and being in His presence is very important. Now, when it comes to that work, when you work well, you do it for God. If you don't work well, then you are insulting God. And I'm paying particular attention to this because there's a huge problem in the civil service. If we are looking at Cameroon today and we are saying that Cameroon is limping because of the bad governance, we are looking at the people in the civil service. There are about 350,000 of them, and you know that we're about 27 million in Cameroon, and you have these 350,000 people are messing up everybody and holding us to ransom. So we're here to say that we need to sit up as a people. A moment ago, I was listening to my friend here talking, and he was giving some kind of 1,001 reasons why a lot of Cameroonians stay away from work. They go drink, they have their babies to breastfeed and that kind of thing. And to just say that, if we were to do a study, for those of you who have traveled and known what work ethics is elsewhere in the world, if someone were to wake you from sleep and ask you, what do you make of work ethics in our public service? If you give a 25% pass, that's good enough. We are not doing well at all, and we really need to sit up as a people Number one, we are not doing well. Number two, we are very corrupt. And then most of the people who are going to these public service jobs, that is through concourse, and those concourse are the most corrupt thing that you can talk of in this nation. And though he's beating around the bush about polls and so on, all that thing is corruption and influence peddling. So we need to say these things because we are getting to that Cameroon that all this rubbish will be corrected, and we have to get it right. We have a lot of youths on the streets, no jobs and so on. And every youth in this country has a right to it. And if you go to some ministries, to some departments, you see that they speak, they do business, but in their vernacular. So, and that's not helping the nation at all. Thank you.
Yes, but I asked a question about yourself. You were a civil servant.
Oh, yes. I wanted to plan this decor first. Oh, to just continue. Yeah, I was a civil servant. To just continue to say that the civil service is there. The civil service does not generate money. If it generates money, that's not their function. It's very little money. The civil service is there. It has a regulatory function to create that working environment in which everybody can work and then find their feet on the ground. You know, it's more about regulation and putting policies and making sure that these policies are followed, and then providing those other services like the roads, communications that we all need. And it's the private sector that actually makes the money. It's the private sector that brings the development. But in republics like ours, third world republics that are not very stabilized, we think that is the public service that is very important. But when you go to other nations like Germany that are doing well, it's the private sector that drives the nation. And the other people are there just to regulate it and make sure that that economy is doing well. Like we've said before several times, what makes a system work is the politics. Is the politics which is handled by the civil servants, and then it is the economics and the development which is an affair of the private sector. So in any nation where the private sector is very weak and everybody runs to the public service because you can be in the public service and not work and still get paid. People go there because of job security and many of these other things. Okay. And you will see that in this kind of our countries, the civil servant is richer than the businessman. When you see any country where the civil servant is richer than a businessman, there is a problem. You see a country where you give work to people in the private sector, but they prefer to abandon it and run and go into the civil service. There is a huge problem because ordinarily is the private sector that is supposed to do well.
Dr. Nick.
I am for being a civil servant. If you want me to,
why did you resign?
Wait a minute. You know, that's a very long story. We'll talk about it. But I was a medical doctor.
Okay.
I was a medical doctor. I was a medical doctor in 1983. I've worked in Hôpital Central. I've worked in Fontaine General Hospital, in Azi Hospital. I've worked in Betua Hospital. I have worked in Betare Oya Hospital. But my problem came in 93, thereabouts, 93, where I was working as the surgeon in the Betua Regional Hospital, and a young man called Abondo Langwe Luis was killed. And there was an issue of a medical report that had to be written, and I was supposed to do the autopsy and everything. So I came up with the cause of death, and you know, people were not very happy with me, and that's why I was kicked out of the public service, literally. So I was kicked out of this public service around end of March 1993. And thereafter, Professor Nomango and the others and the Munas and so on, they helped me and propped me up in the private sector.
Okay.
That's my story. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Most people fail because the chances are very limited. Times and need 10 people, while people are writing more than 3,000. John is writing from Amanda. We wrote a concours under public health, PPTE, under public health in 2007, and were sent in as a contractual administration. There are people who the government decided to recruit in 2009. That is those who were serving in hospitals temporarily. The government decided to recruit them without writing any concours, and they were also sent in as contract workers. That is my worry. My worry is that some people wrote a concours and others didn't write a concours. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu and crew. I find this program very educative. Your panelists are very sound and current with the Cameroonian way of life. Barrister Ebolo Emmanuel Musango, writing from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Liu and all the panelists. God bless you for all your efforts, Mr. Liu. To me, Cameroon is all about who do you know. If not, how can you explain the fact that concours results are published before the concours themselves are being written? The panelists on your right speak as if he is a stranger in Cameroon. When I hear people like him speak, I develop stomach ache. Okay, Collins is writing from Tombe. Good evening, Mr. Liu and others in the studio. I'm enjoying your program, but I just heard that contract workers don't write concours. Then why is there a selection test for grade 1 teachers to be recruited, whereas they wrote an entrance exams into the training schools? It is really a call for concern. Thanks. Jonas Ketu is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Are civil servants allowed to resign from their duty, most especially the uniform officers? Ngwajon, writing from Tarikon. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I wish to contradict the fact that we bribe before entering into public service. It's by merit. Let me cite a recent example of the police concours that was recently published. In the medical department, that 10 were needed. 0 was taken because they didn't make it. Why should we believe that we must bribe before being a civil servant? Lekun Zenembo Cha, writing from Magba in West Region. Good evening to you all. The topic of discussion is very interesting. The ENAM graduate too is doing well, but needs to do more. Okay. Ayon Yannick is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Liu. My greetings to Apostle. I love your program, especially when Apostle is present. Mr. Liu, Cameroon is a country of God, Father. When you have one family person up, everything is possible. Good evening. I really appreciate your programs, for it's not only educative but help clarifies issues. If you could bring in an expert in your programs like Mr. Lekunze there. Okay. Last program about gas shortages, I didn't see any expert in commerce or from the delegation there to clarify those of a particular region being successful. We have 10 regions and they say they need 2 from each region. You would see the French speaking are more than the others. Okay. Joel is writing from Tico. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The Giants analysis. I like the facts Apostle Ambe is painting. I'm really enjoying the broadcast. Stephen is writing from Yaoundé. Another question here, Mr. Liu. Military servants who resign from their duties are termed deserters. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Thanks for the very educative program. Teachers in the basic education sector write the competitive exams into GTTC. After training, they wait for some years to qualify to write another competitive examination to be recruited as a contractualized teacher governed by the labor code. They qualify for integration as civil servants only after 10 years. Why this difference when it comes to ENS, ENAM, police, etc.? Thanks. Fred is writing from Bamenda. I don't know whether someone is going to clarify what he just said, but let me take the messages. Mr. Liu, greetings. The question goes to Apostle Ambe. Why is it that in Cameroon, civil servants are richer than businessmen? Alex is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The topic is very interesting. Mr. Liu, I just want to ask Mr. Lekuze, with that, whether there is regional balance in public exams in Cameroon. Monfort Eugene is writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you in the studio. Mr. Lekuze should tell us how the center with 15 always carries the highest number of successful candidates for exams. Telling us about quotas doesn't really explain the reason many of them come from particular areas. Terence is writing from Mutengene. So many messages. Yes, just clarification to some of the
Yes, just want to clarify a few points. You know, sometimes when we interpret statistical results, sometimes we get it wrong. For instance, it is one of those things that just happened that during this police thing, we had that list of medical personnel that came out with zero success. But just because that list came out with 0 success does not tell us that there was efficiency in the whole system, and there has always been efficiency. Don't get carried away by that. We need to know what exactly happened there before we got that zero candidate. And then you would also know that when the government launched the 25,000 jobs, I mean, there were some jobs even to today that have not been picked up, just because those technicians or people with those qualifications are not available, it's not because the, how do I put it? But let us say it, except otherwise proven, that many people who go through concours in the public service, especially the big ones, they bribe their way through. You know, I don't want to mention the name of some schools. I don't want to draw firepower on me now. But there were some schools where you need to pay 5 million. That money went from 5 million to 10 million. And today it's 20 million to get a spot in that school. And if you want, you know, there's a scientific way. I mean, let's stop this beating around the bush. There's a scientific way of showing that we've been doing very poorly in this nation. Let's take the map of Cameroon, a virgin map of Cameroon, with the 10 regions, you know, were mapped out, and we photocopy it and have some blank sheets. And then let's go through all the big schools that are training civil servants, and then we look at the list of candidates that succeeded. Let's take the list for Enam, for instance. We go through the name and we begin to plot them through in those divisions or regions from which they come for the last 20 years or 30 years. And we do that for the police, for the gendarmes, for the queues, for the whatever, and polytechnics and so on. You will see that there will be a pattern that will come out. I tried to look at it and think something came out, and it looks like people from certain areas, they eat more eggs and drink more Ovaltine than everyone else.
Yeah, but Dr. Nick, somebody raised this issue about the guys who go to GTTC. They write a competitive exam, they pass, and then they will need to wait for some years to write another exam to be taken as contract workers with basic education, and may also need another to become civil servants. How does it work?
Yes, Mr. Leo, you write a competitive exam to go to the school. Now, many of them, when integrated, they launched a selection test. A selection test is organized for them, and when a selection test is organized for them, they are selected, and after 10 years, automatically they become civil servants. Now, you look at the number of available schools that train grade 1 teachers, for example. They talk about situations of grade 1. You said the number of grade 1 teachers. We have private institutions that train grade 1 teachers. But now, after the training, these private grades 1, some of them organize selection tests, some just admit like that. So now the government have done in a way that since there are many private schools that train these grade 1 teachers, let us make a selection test for all of them without taking only those who pass through the government training centers. That is why at the end, a competitive selection test is organized for them to become contract workers. That is the way I've understood it. Then looking at whether there is, I got somebody asked whether there is really regional balance or not. To answer that question, I think that we need to tell the Cameroonians what we are supposed to tell Cameroonians. We are supposed to tell them the law as it is. Interpreting the law maybe as it ought to be and the rest maybe might not help. Let's tell the Cameroonian that this is the way. The law has said this. Please follow this way. If you have some people, they are having some other ways which they are not defined, you cannot educate Cameroonians yet.
Okay. Now, Apostle Ambe, from your perspective, I want us to go away from, go beyond this, what we have been discussing. I want us to look at civil servants. Some persons raise the issue that civil servants are richer than business people. Yes. Is it a fact?
Yes, hey. That's
is it a fact?
The person directed a question to me, and the person is 100% correct. I wouldn't want anybody else to answer this question.
Okay.
When I used to grow up in those days, people hated civil service. To them, you cannot go and be earning salary because salary will not amount to anything. Most young, I even have persons today who are not in the civil service because they rejected it. It was a disdainful kind of assignment in those days. Everybody was thinking of some big businesses, working in some multinational companies, in some great corporations, but I can tell you with all sincerity today that every Cameroonian is looking for a matricle number. and you ask the reason why there is this shift, this paradigm shift from working in the private sector to insisting on working in the public service, you will see very clearly that even though civil servants don't display their wealth publicly, they are the richest Cameroonians as far as we are concerned. That is why, because in Cameroon, you no longer get money again by wisdom, you get it by power. And those who are in office are the ones who have the power. A deal has the capacity to shut a multi-million business in Bonaberi. So people fly into the country, instead of going to invest in business, they go and buy commissioners. He walks to the commissioner office and gives him 2 million. He says, grand frère, now go back me up. He goes to the DO's office and gives him 2 million. The salary of a DO or a commissioner is nothing to write home about. But if you look at the investment they have, it's far beyond human understanding. So power rules in Cameroon, not intelligence. Power. They exhibit power over individuals who have the intelligence to create the wealth. It is just like I can have power, I leave you to work the money. Work the money. When I use my power, I will subjugate you. That's how it is. Or how do you explain that people in communities, DOs are there, they have 6, 7, 10 hectares of land? It's power. It's power. Somebody who is the taxation general in a particular environment comes into your company and tells that your tax is 200 million, you're going to give me 100 million, I forge documents for you. That is far beyond his salary. So the opportunities attached to the offices of civil servants, especially those who are the ones, because whether you like it or not, if a government official, a civil servant who occupies a place of authority, signs a document against you, you are finished. His stamp and his pen has power than any billions you have in the bank. And that's the reason why most all businessmen in Cameroon are running to be part of the system in question so that they will not become victims tomorrow. All our senators are big businessmen. All our parliamentarians, they are not going to the parliament because they want to go and regulate laws. They are going there because that office will defend their businesses back at home. If not so, you are at a risk. And then the worst of it is to be a successful businessman and dare to challenge the state. You are in trouble. So you discover that people who occupy places of authority are wealthier than those who are even working the money because they're the one who call the shots. So a primary school teacher, primary school headmistress, your salary is probably 120,000 or 200,000. But before the year runs to an end, you've made almost about 2, 3, 4 million because you are the one that makes sure who enters the school or not. I have seen people who are praying as teachers to become principals of schools. A man was a teacher for several years and never bought a car. The first year they made him principal, he bought 2 jeeps. Is it the salary that made him bought those jeeps or is the opportunity? So you realize that the offices given to people this day is what gives them opportunity. So we are ruled by power, not by intelligence. Until we will shift to the place of intelligence and put power behind, we will never go nowhere. So that's the reason why civil servants are richer in Cameroon than businessmen. Okay.
Lekunze, should civil servants, according to the law, are they expected to engage in businesses? Are they supposed to do contracts? What does the law say about some of the things that civil servants ought not to do?
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu. Civil servants, they are excluded from some type of businesses, okay, even to the level at which it extends to their wives.
Okay.
Yes, civil servants, they are excluded from engaging into some type of businesses and into some type of contracts and even their wives. And the law has specified that even if their wives, if they want to engage in this type of businesses, they need to be declaring it to the government. They need to declare to the government that this is what we are doing, this is what I am doing as the wife of this person. I don't know whether it's practical, but that is what the law has explained. And talking about whether civil servants can do contracts, are allowed to do contracts.
Execute contracts.
Execute contracts. It depends. Are they executing the contracts for private individuals or
private? As for private purpose.
They are
as
not,
individuals. Yeah.
Yes, they are not allowed to engage in contracts. They are not. The law has not specified for that.
How about politics?
Civil servants, they are allowed to do politics. If you look at Article 21 of the General Statute on Civil Service, Article 21 specifies that a civil servant, you may join a political party, you can join a cultural association, you can join a professional union to ensure what representation and maybe defend of his career of interest. That is Article 24 is going to tell you that, because that is under the obligations of a civil servant. It is being stated like that. It is being stated because civil servants, the Article 24 to Article 21 to 34 of that general statute explain the obligation, the rights and obligations of the civil servants. That is, the civil servants, you have the right to join a political party, that is for your career interest. You have the rights, that is Article 25. It says you have the rights to protection, that is from threats, violence, assaults, and the rest. You have the right to remuneration, that is you have to be paid salary, allowances, maybe logement, and the rest. Article 30, you talk about the rights to health. 33, right to live. 34, rights to participation, and the rest. The law has not excluded civil servants from joining associations, political party, or the rest.
But they are not supposed to engage in businesses and
measure contracts
and execute contracts.
Yes.
And if their wives have to engage in certain things, they need to notify that we are into this. Yeah, but Dr. Nick, the civil servants we know, are they not involved in all of what the law prohibits?
Many of them are more of business people than anything else, and they are just using that office to have access to the juice. All right, so they would call, they would tender all these contracts, but in reality, they have a mechanism for passing the contracts to their friends, to their wives, to their family, and so on. So in reality, we've got ourselves into a mess where the law says one thing. Cameroon is not bad because we have bad laws. We have some of the best laws under the sun. But, you know, we usually shelve those laws and do what we want to do. Like I keep saying all the time, you know, if you go to Nkondenge, you'll see a lot of civil servants, high-ranking civil servants in prison, and there are even some also in offices now. And they would steal money from the government coffers, and they use this contract mechanisms and so on to be able to suck that money out of the government treasury, and you know, pass it into their own systems. So it's something that is very cleverly done. When it comes to stealing money, they don't ask the president, but when they have to take up their responsibilities or do something useful for the community, they will tell you that the president has not given them the authorization to do that. But when they have to do some of these funny things and steal and do whatever which is not lawful, they don't ask anybody, and they've made it a right. You see, there are a lot of people now in positions who kind of like squeeze every customer that comes to their office, and they say that I bribed to go to that school, I had to pay, but you know, I paid so much to go to that school. So now somebody would have paid 10 million to become I don't know what, but as soon as he gets the office, that's his fond de commerce, it's his investment, and for the next 30 years that he's working, he will keep having the 10 million over and over and over and over. It's a scam.
It's a scam. You think so? You have friends who are civil servants, Apostle Ambe?
Yes, many of them.
Are they doing business? Do they execute contracts? Do they even fight with you for contracts?
Yes, Mr. Lo, we have a lot of civil servant friends who are owners of appartements meublés. They have immobiliers. They have.
It means because I asked whether there is a mechanism that monitors, regulates, and yeah, it means these instances within the respective ministries are not doing the job.
No, it's not like they don't do their job. Probably they are doing their job, but these civil servants are smarter than some of these laws. Somebody builds a house and puts in the son's name. He has 7-story building. Is the name of his first son. You wonder when the son grew up, what he worked, how he made the money before constructing that house. Some of the best houses in this country are built by civil servants. Some of the largest businesses, but now the drama is that it is not in their names. It's not bearing their names. That's the mafia. That's why I say some of the laws we put in place, the laws are just to, how do I put it?
Smoke screen.
A smoke screen in the community, the community to convince other laws are in place, because these civil servants are smarter than most of these things. If I open a company tomorrow as a civil servant, I put in my son's name, I'm free. If I build a municipality and put in my son's name, I am free. That is to let you understand that most people, because the rush, there's a rush for matriculation number in this country. There is a rush. I met a young man, he said, if I can only have a matriculation number, I will leave this country. That even at the embassy, they will easily give you a visa, knowing that you have a standard salary. Even banks will easily give you loans, knowing that you have a constant salary that comes in. I'm in the private sector. Sometimes you face difficulties in collecting loans in the bank to carry out a project. But a civil servant, as soon as it comes with the matriculation number, as a matter of fact, banks believe civil servants like deities. And this is the reason why I tell you that if you see a civil servant investing in business because they know this law, they will never put those business in their names. My brother Nsah can attest to that, even though he would definitely don't want to speak it that way. But there are people, most of the civil servants in this country are doing businesses, and those businesses are not in their names. They own companies. They bid for contracts. They can take contracts over the phone, but not their names on the documents. They can use their office, because they will tell that tomorrow the opportunity may also come to his office. It's chop by chop. If you don't service me today, tomorrow I will not service you in my office. It's a do me or do you affair. And because of that, the ordinary man is caught in between these persons in question. Now, how do you explain, if you go and follow the salary structure of Cameroonian civil servants, a civil servant can work for 30 years without building a house, according to statistics. I studied the book. They say if you earn 300,000 francs a month for the next 30 years, you can't build a house. And there are civil servants who don't have salary for up to 300,000. Yet they have mansions. How did they get the money?
That takes me to my next worry. I wanted us to look at the pay package. Yes, pay package.
That's what I wanted to learn.
Okay.
That the reason why there's high rate corruption equally is because the salary is very, very low. A friend of mine traveled abroad and he was caught at the airport, tried to give something to the diplomat. I said, no, I can't risk to collect this nonsense from you because my salary is 10 times this is what you want to give me. Corruption can be avoided when salaries are properly put in place. Somebody cannot sit down from morning till evening, and at the end of the morning, any 120,000. Why will he not steal? You give grandma to a rat that they will not eat, they will eat.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Go. Yes. Can we understand categorization of the pay packages in the civil service?
The categories. When we are talking about the categorization of pay packages in the public service, you are going to notice that the pay packages, they differs according to the various categories. When it comes to civil servants, the pay packages, they are being classified from category A to category D. That is A, B, C, and G. They have slight differences. And the pay packages too, they also differs according to the government departments too. There are some government departments, there are some category A workers that are classified as A1 and A2, which is the highest category. Then now looking at the contract workers of the civil servant too, they are classified from class 1 to 12 to 12. Now civil servants, they are paid according to the public service index. There is a price that has been fixed for a public service index for each government department and for each category. When the Minister of Public Service released an exam, obviously he classified or he gave the salary index of those civil servants according to the category of those people.
So that is how the categorization is being done.
Yes,
Technology is being very careful.
wow. Dr. Nick,
Yeah.
you've worked with a public service.
Yes.
Are they very comfortable in Cameroon?
Oh, let's be frank. We need to do something about the working conditions of people in the public service.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very important. We have to be very clear on this. Okay, we have all said that the quality of work that they do and the corruption, that's what we call bad governance. Well, that's it. But we must polish it up and clean it up because we must use them whether we like them or not. And we must make life very comfortable for them. Let's take the social services. I'm talking of medical doctors. I'm talking of teachers and this group of people. You see, in the West Cameroon days, the medical doctors, they had, so there was the hospital environment, and then there was the doctor's house, the nurse's quarters, and so on. So these people already, when you are moved from place to place, you are not thinking of a house. You have a house, and you have, so you didn't have to think of a house. And you just went to work, and you knew that your children will be okay because you have a roof over your head. We've come to a situation these days where there's no housing for anybody. Okay, there's no housing for anybody, and when you look at the salary that they earn, and you find out just what percentage of that salary they are going to use to pay for their housing, then you feel so bad because at the end of the day they have nothing with which to feed their families. It's very, very tricky. In as much as we are saying that the public service is corrupt or the civil service is corrupt, we also have to accept that whatever we give them as a pay is not good enough. Especially if you had to compare that with what I heard comes from Abidjan. Where's Abidjan? Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire. I don't know whether it's a fake or it's true, but if you, yeah. So, and why are all these things like that? Is because we have a nation. You know, I've said it several times that our economy in Cameroon is a primitive economy. The whole economy has to be beefed up. And it's when that whole economy grows, then the civil servants will do well, the private sector will do well. But we're in a kind of country where we put all our power in the hands of the civil service, and I told you that the civil service is not what makes the economy work. So we're in a country that manufactures nothing. We're in a country that imports almost everything. So that messes up our trade very badly. And something like our agriculture is not doing very well. We import a lot of the things that we need in Cameroon. To understand what I'm saying, go to any of the supermarkets and check it out. 95% of the things that you find on the shelves are imported. Like I said, I was coming from Bonaberi and I was listening to the BBC. And they were discussing the problems. Ghana, as we speak, is in a lot of trouble. The city is in a lot of trouble, and there's a lot of inflation in that country because the Ghanaian business people have been importing stuff and selling. They don't make things in Ghana. As long as we don't make things in our own countries and stop all these importations, we'll never correct our economies, and our economies will stay very weak, and no nation can be rich enough just by selling raw materials. So why are we in so much of a mess? We're in so much of a mess because we are not running our economies properly. Until we restructure our economies, restructure our education, a lot of things will go wrong. Let me give you an example. Let's say we spend about 350 billion francs in Cameroon every year importing food. Yet, if we could train our youths to be able to grow the foods with machines and transform them, and we stop the importation of rice, stop the importation of champagne, stop the importation of apples and so on, and do those things ourselves here, the 350 billion we are talking about will go to our youths, not to China and France. So that is it. It's about strategic thinking, which we are not doing. And as long as we are not doing this, and as long as many civil servants are just interested in taking bribes from multinationals and selling our country, we will never get out of this mess.
Well, we're talking about almost everybody wants to join the civil service, and we say civil servants are really, really some of them are richer than business persons, but their salaries, sincerely, I'm not sure they are so fat. So
No.
how do we justify the fact that they don't earn very big, but have so many investments and then constructing mansions?
That's why I told that Cameroon is ruled by power, not wisdom.
Okay.
A man who is given an office has power. He may not have salary, and power influences activities. And that's the reason why, even though they know very well that the salaries are not big, but the power behind that office is what produces the income. A police officer has a right to stop you on the road. It is his galon. Sometimes their salary is 74,000. I was told by a police officer, when you leave the police academy, your salary is about 74,000 for a constable. A young man who graduated from the gendarmerie academy, they say, go and defend your salary at the war front. You go and look at the salary, it's not up to 100,000. If you look at it, now he stands at the roadside and is controlling cars. One day he can make 100,000. In 30 days he can make 3 million. Now look at the salary and the advantage. That's why I tell people that sometimes in the civil service, it's not even the salary, it's the advantages tied to the office. Do you know what it means to displace a DO out of his office to go to the field, déplacer le chef de terre? That is something very serious. You know what it means to meet a magistrate in his office? Because if you go and check the pay packet of all these civil servants, you will not even like the job. You won't. There are people who are earning 50,000, others 75,000. That is how low the salary is. But now you ask question, why is that somebody insisting? A primary school teacher in Cameroon earns 130,000 francs. That of Côte d'Ivoire earns 390,000 francs. That of a secondary school in Cameroon earns 200 something thousand. That of Côte d'Ivoire earns 590,000 francs. What makes a teacher insist? A teacher in that particular class where he is a god, is a deity. He's the one that commands, the one that calls the shots. If you choose that every child is going to buy a particular book that he sells for 2,000 francs, for 200 people, he has already gained 400,000 francs. That is to let you understand that the power in the office is bigger than the salary. So people are ruling by power. That's why somebody can do everything possible to become a magistrate tomorrow, because if after all the opportunity is given to him to swindle a case or to gloss a case file, he can eat 15 million in one sitting. That is not compared to his salary. One action can give him salary for 15 years. That's the reason why the power I'm talking about is what is killing us. If we are left in this country to be ruled by wisdom, allow the minds of men to produce word, allow the skill of men to produce word, will go far. What is killing us is that people who have no mind are in the place of power, and because they have power, they can't use their mind anymore. No nation grows by authority. Every nation grows by wisdom. And wisdom is when a conducive atmosphere is allowed for everybody to utilize their mind and explore their resources. But sometimes a few will use their mind, others will use power to crack them down. And every society that does not train the people to use their mind to create wealth, instead teach them to use their offices to create wealth, such a society will have a very unbalanced wealth distribution. And that's the reason why we are in Cameroon, we are facing this difficulty, because anyone just wants to become a police constable that will give him that authority to stop a taxi on the roadside, to become a general that will help him. He's not going there because he wants to use his mind to render services in the police corps.
I want us to look at what civil servants should do and what they should not do. You see, the law actually provides for them to engage in associations, political parties, and that. This also is a right to almost everybody. I'm sure the law did not want to deprive civil servants from this right, but is this also working against some growth aspects of the nation?
I mean,
the fact that they have a right to belong to political parties, they have a right to belong to this, because pertaining to a particular political party, especially a party that actually has the power to appoint and then transfer and a host of others, does this not play negatively to the fairness, objectivity, and the capacity for these civil servants to serve everybody equally?
Mr. Leo, when you ask like that, what I'm going to tell you is that the public's or the civil servants, he works and give the reports to the government and not to a political party. Or yes.
Yeah, but we know what obtains in Cameroon.
No,
don't you think that it plays to some extent a role, or it has an impact, a bearing on the capacity for a civil servant to objectively deliver and serve Cameroonians without bias?
That might be an exception to that rule.
Okay.
But the general rule is that civil servants, you cannot deprive them. You cannot deprive civil servants from maybe joining political parties. You cannot deprive them from joining associations because it is their civil and political rights to join associations. We should look at the general rule, not at the exceptions. Now, there are some civil servants which all of us we can attest that they work and give the clean reports to the government.
Of course.
Some people can give reports maybe to their political parties because maybe they had godfathers in quote, but now they are deraying from the normal civil service law, which maybe I will not argue because I don't know some of those people, but the general rule is that the obligations of a civil servant, they are well spelled. His rights, his duties, they are well spelled. But they might be, we should not compare an individual to the general public service. An individual doing a wrong doesn't mean that everybody in that service is doing the same wrong. I would like us Cameroonians to derail from this attitude of generalization, taking an individual to judge maybe a particular office. It is not like that.
Okay.
I am going to cite situations where you are seeing what is happening in Fako now, the SDU. You see how he is working, maybe. We should talk about a person. We should, to an extent, us Cameroonians, we forget about the image and follow the shadow. Let's talk about the office the person is holding and not the person itself. For example, if Apostle Ambe is appointed tomorrow as maybe a governor, people will say maybe Apostle Ambe, we knew him in church, he was not doing well, he was not doing this. Let's talk about the offices of the civil servants and forget about the persons, maybe the person have done this, but we know that the civil service is not working without some people that are maybe working against the rules.
Somebody is asking how long it takes to move echelons in the civil service without necessarily writing or applying for it.
Advancement.
2
years if you have 2 years without sanctions. Yes, advancement in Cameroon is 2 years without, but it also depends too because in the military it's different. But in the public service it's 2 years if you don't have any disciplinary sanction.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, I was going to say something. You know, we are here to bring light to what is happening and stop spinning around in circles. Let's say things as they are. In Cameroon, except you have blind and deaf, the public service is politicized in Cameroon. It's heavily politicized. The schools are politicized. I don't know what else, but call it, if you call anything and it's not ruled, it's not heavily politicized, then I don't know what you're talking about. Everything in Cameroon is heavily politicized. Maybe I would say the public service probably up to 70%, and you would see it when elections are coming. How the civil servants, they abandon their offices and then they take the government cars and they disappear into the bushes. They use government cars, use government time, use government resources, and so on. So what Mr. Lepunze is saying, I don't know, probably is not Cameroonian.
Okay, but do you think that it influences the way we deliver when we get involved in politics?
Yes,
as civil servants.
As civil servants, it influences the way we deliver when we get into politics. I think the political sector of the country is a neutral sector. And the civil servant normally is supposed to be somebody who works for the betterment of the nation, not the betterment of a political party. When civil servants indulge into politics, they vote to protect their interests, not to protect the betterment of the nation. When they involve into politics, they don't defend the integrity of the country. They defend the office that has given them bread to eat. And that's the reason why it is possible for a civil servant who is in government. It's difficult for a civil servant who is in government to vote another political party. It's very difficult and very complicated. You discover that they can be in a system where the system is rotten, complicated, and they know that things are not working well. And because that particular system is rubbing oil in their mouth, or on their mouth, they will do everything possible to keep it the people in power, not because they are working for the interest of the nation. It's so bad that you are considered some kind of a black leg or some devil when you are working in the government, that you vote against the same government. But I think that we're supposed to make politics flexible to the level where anybody in the civil service, because it is not a political party that employs you into the civil service. It is a state. And if an individual is in the civil service and chooses to support an opposition party, he has a right to legitimate, because why? He didn't get into the civil service based on the political party's endorsement. He went into that civil service based on the competitive exam that he made. And that exam is made for everyone, whether you are CPDM, SDF, MRC, or whatever political party you find yourself there. Now, when you enter into the civil service, it becomes very complicated because they have coined it in such a way that if you don't support the party in question, the party in power, your life is at risk. Probably you may lose that job. Now, how do we who are working in the civil service, who understand that things are not working well for the country, still insist not just to cast our vote to the ruling party that is in power, but also manipulate the elections to make sure that the party stays in power? I think somebody who is working as a governor has the right to vote as they will discover that even the CP there is working under is not good enough to run the country anymore. But that is not the case here. Okay. That's not the case.
That is
so
not...
it influences their political drive a lot.
Okay, let me take a few of our televiewers what they are saying. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all the speakers that are carefully selected. I love Apostle Ambe. He knows this country to his fingertips. In this country, power really rules. An inspector of basic education, in one of the subdivisions, asked all teachers in her jurisdiction to contribute 10,000 francs per teacher. If there are about 300 teachers, imagine how much she makes. The rate of corruption in this country is terrible. Okay. Hello, good evening. It's Echo from Limbe. I used to buy gas for 6,500 francs. Today, I bought it for 8,000. I don't understand what is going. Okay, there is a gas shortage out there, sister. Mr. Rillian B. Lachara, writing from Douala, Bonaberi. Greetings to you all. Particularly, I want to thank Reverend Ambe from the way he is answering every question in the studio. It's really touching the truth of what we are facing in this country. God bless you for bringing this program. Thank you once more. Thank you too for watching and contributing. Ferdinand from Yaoundé says, good evening, tell you, why is Clinton not telling us the amount paid in different categories? I'm sure he's going to come to that. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and your panelists in the studio. When I listen to some of your panelists, I get confused. How can the government be punishing government teachers who went to training schools, passing through an entrance because of private schools? Can the government not use the certificates to differentiate those who are supposed to write a selection test? Somebody from GTTC Bamenda has a certificate different from somebody from St. Andrews, so the selection test should not be written by those from government schools because they have already written before entering the training centers. Senior is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. This topic is very interesting. The man of God, Apostle Ambe, is correct. Civil servants are richer than businessmen in Cameroon. The country is ruled by magical number syndrome. This is Madame Felicia writing from Limbe. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The panelists permit me say this. After my A level, I always wanted to be a custom officer because our neighbor was a custom officer and always tells us that every day he comes back home with no less than 1 million francs a day. He even convinced us to always try to register for the custom officer examinations. Edwin is writing from California. Good evening. I'm Stefan Santos from Yaoundé. I would say if young Cameroonians involved in hard working like youth in Cuba, there will come a time where the government will be forcing and begging the youths to work like the situation in Cuba. Okay. Good evening. In the house, I love the answer Pastor Ambe gave concerning whether civil service have money more than businessmen. He's very correct. Fon is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Fon. Good evening, Mr. Liu and everyone in the studio. Nice and educative topic, but my cry and concern is about the fact that Cameroon is the only country in the world where civil servants are more richer than business owners. Secondly, as Dr. Nick said, the Cameroon government has done this. One is not even on their payroll. Your existence is not known, and yet we hear very huge sums of money being embezzled that could be used to pay social allowances for all the citizens of this country. Prince Bile is writing from Germany. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. Please, I am a lab technician by profession. It's so difficult for me to enroll in the integration exams because we have thousands of lab technicians in the country, but we are being given 15 chances at most. It feels discouraged. I feel discouraged because I don't have that connection. Cole, writing from Kwakwa. The feeling that my name is not Atangana would in fact discouraging me from any concours. Okay. Greetings, Mr. Leo. Please, can you help me know how regional balance works in Cameroon when in nursing recruitment, for example, only 5-degree nurses are needed? I'm enjoying the program. Carrie Etan Ngangui is writing from Tinyere. Okay, we have just 5 minutes to go. Lekunze.
Can I just answer the question?
Okay.
About there's a gentleman who's saying that he's a laboratory technician, and he makes an observation that there are so many of them, and the country usually, set only 15 places.
15 of them.
Yes. There's something about it. I'm taking advantage of what you have noticed to explain something that probably you're not aware of. And I have a school and I train health personnel, but I have been asking people to shift from medical lab technology and then pick some other fields, because when children are leaving the high schools to come to training schools, they know only the nursing, they know the lab technician, and they know the doctor in the hospital. They don't know anything else. And the job of a lab technician is like this. If we go to, let's say, the regional hospital in Bamenda and take statistics, we'll see that there are probably 10 lab technicians in the laboratory, and there might be 200 nurses in that hospital. The thing is this: if the director of the regional hospital wants to improve the quality or step up the activity in the laboratory, he would buy with machines. He will not employ more lab technicians. So lab technicians is like having salt. Just because you're a rich man with a bag of salt at home, you will not put all your salt in the soup. So you need just this number of lab technicians, and you are saturated. So I would encourage a lot of youths to study something else. Don't all go to lab technology. And to also remind us that when you see many of their children who have gone to, let's say, left high school with biochemistry, they go to the universities. Most of the minors that they do are laboratory technology. So we have more laboratory technologies than we need.
Okay, we have more of them than we need. Now, you see, retirement age is 50, 55 years?
The head of state has increased it to 60.
To 60?
To 60 for category A and B.
Okay. Can you elaborate that you are recruited, you have to work for 30, 35 years and then you go on retirement?
Yes, that is why when I was talking about the age requirement for recruitment, I said the government has made sure that you should not be too young or too old for you to be recruited as a civil servant. So that is why they have taken the age to be at least 17 and at most 35. That is for the respective categories. So the government recruiting each civil servant, the government preview that each civil servant is supposed to work for at least 20 years before going for retirement. So if you take 20 years and add to 35 at most, you are going to have 55 years of retirement age. That is why I think that age was fixed like that.
Okay, that is why the age was fixed at the way you put it. But now we have persons who are actually very old, still working. They forged their birth certificates, so they themselves they beg to go on retirement, but it's not possible.
they beg for retirement.
To go for
They don't beg for to go for retirement. Naturally, the law have specified that when you reach 55, you are supposed to voluntarily, whether the states, maybe whether they have appointed somebody to take over your position or not.
But we have very old persons who are still there.
We have very old persons who are still there because they have not been replaced to an extent where they have not been replaced. And because maybe they have an attachment and they have the loft to save their fatherland, they now continue for the new persons to be brought before they go. But naturally, in some offices, like in the military corps, when you aged for retirement, you voluntarily go to your house, no matter whether they appoint somebody to replace you or not. Because it is even advantageous. When you go for retirement and maybe you don't voluntarily go, you are now responsible for the acts that you commit in your office. You do good, the government appreciates. But now, if it goes bad now, it is your responsibility. So you have to choose. But what I'm going to tell Cameroonians about this is that I want us to look at the law as it is. I want us to engage in when we want to gain positions in the public service. Let us use the normal procedure. Let us pass through the normal competitive exam. Let us forget about, if we keep on educating Cameroonians, if we keep on educating the public, that you must buy your place to go into the public service. I want to really ask myself this question. In places where they need 10 people and 100 people are buying their places, how do you think they are going to use in selection? You would think that everybody go by buying. If you prepare for an exam, I am not saying that other factors do not exist. There are situations where other factors exist which I don't know, which I cannot explain because I don't know. But if you prepare for your exam, note that in Cameroon, we are talking about people buying their places. I have seen Apostle Dr. Nick saying that they know people who have bought money, they know people. I don't know if they also know people that entered without buying. I don't know how. Yes, I don't know how much Dr. Nick bought to become a medical doctor. So when you look at this, let's encourage Cameroonians. Let's encourage Cameroonians on the image. Let us not talk about the shadow. Do not follow the shadow. But if you have the means of, you think that you can follow the shadow, which is buying and the rest, it is left to you. And talking about salaries, Mr. Leo, you see that at first, even in the Bible states, civil servants, when you see those civil servants that are devoted to do their civil service very well, you see that they don't look at their salaries. If Cameroonians will look at their salaries, they will not love the civil service. It is the patriotic feeling to work for your country, to work in the public service for your country, first of all, to serve your country is patriotic. We need to develop this spirit. All of us, we should stop. The country cannot move without critics, but I want us to put our country in front, that this country is the best country. We develop the spirit of patriotism. We are going to see that all of us, if we develop the spirit of patriotism, we are going to engage in nation building. Engaging in nation building, you will not think of corruption, you will not think of embezzlement, you will not think of favoritism and the rest. And when you look at our political system, as we are talking about civil servant joining politics, we have seen situations, your political rights, you are the person that is entitled to choose your political party. There are ministers in these countries who are opposition, who have parties. They are civil servants, they are those who have their own political parties. Yeah. It's not that a civil servant must belong to a political, maybe...
From the general sense of view.
Yeah. Okay, not every civil servant must belong to the ruling CPDM party. That's what you meant. Now, let me take a few. Greetings to you all, Mr. Liu. I love the great job you people are doing to educate us. Please let the graduates enlighten me on reclassification issue after obtaining another higher diploma from the one employed writing from Bambili Sebastian. Good evening, Mr. Liu. We appreciate you and the panelists. Mr. Liu, can you imagine the GCE board is still owing my out-of-station allowance for 2021 Michael is writing from Ekondo Titi. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm enjoying the program. Thanks very much for the work you are doing and praying to God to continue to strengthen you, to continue doing good works. Fabrice is writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you all in the studio. Before these people are given these positions, conditions are always attached to it, especially in higher positions. Some of them even go to the extent of taking oaths, either to respect their godfather's government. What about military generals? Good evening to all in the house. It is a nice program of today telling Cameroonians what kind of system we operate. Apostle Ambe and Dr. Nick will have long lives with the truth, please, for their numbers. Okay, Apostle Ambe, yes, how do we get our civil service? Dr. Nick, how do we get our service effectively, genuinely work for the people?
Thank you very much. It needs a mindset shift. And when we are talking about a mindset shift, it's not just for people in the civil service. We need a mindset shift in the whole nation. We need to change the way we see things. You know, even when Lekunze was talking about patriotism, there are a lot of ministers. I was very embarrassed at one time. There was one minister who, they were asking him about patriotism, and he said he sings the national anthem. It was very crazy. Patriotism is not about singing the national anthem. Patriotism is a way of life. Patriotism is your whole being. It's about love for your nation and doing things for your neighbor, doing things, working, you know, having the right work spirit, just having the right mindset, and doing unto others as you have it done unto yourself. You know, it's very difficult to say that we should do this so that the public service should be okay. We would rather say, what is the mindset that Cameroonians as a whole should have? What should be that attitude, that character, that behavior that we as a people should have? And because the civil servants are extracted from the people, from the population. So once we have a great population, a population that respects itself and each other, and a population that knows its responsibility and what everybody should be doing, and we are all working forward positively with that mindset, then the civil service servants will be good. You know, there's no way you are going to have a good civil service with a public that is not up to speed. So it's about a general mindset in the whole nation, you know, changing the way we do business, looking at countries that have succeeded and finding out how do they do things. It's about you know, this president, this prime minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew is the person who came in there and put things straight for everybody. It was not just for the civil service, it was for everybody. I said, this is the way we are going to do business, and then that country changed. It's about doing things the way, you know, there was another Nigerian president who came with war against indiscipline. Yeah, it is that war against indiscipline. But it can only succeed when we pay attention to our youths and change the kind of education we give them. You know, we have this kind of education where in schools we just teach children to copy and recite rhymes and so on, but we don't pay a lot of attention to character. And we have said time and again that success, 25% of your success is all your certificates, the thousands of PhDs that you might have to your name. But 75% of success is your character and attitude. And therefore you can have all those sorts of degrees, pass all sorts of concours, but if your character is not good, if you have no respect for yourself, if you have no respect for your neighbor, if you have no respect for God, if you have no respect for children, if you have no respect for your driver, you have no respect for your cook, we are going nowhere.
Good evening, Mr. Liu and all the panelists. Thank you for the educative topics. Always from my own point of view, Cameroon has very good and nice laws, but the application isn't there. Mr. Lekunze explains what obtains very well may be from the knowledge acquired from Enam, but to me it's not practiced in the field. Thomas is writing from mile 14, that is in Dibanda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's a nice program. Please, can you help me with Apostle Ambe's number? Rogers is writing from Bamenda. Okay, good evening to you, Rogers. Mr. Liu, basic education don't suffer seminars. We pay 3,000 francs each teacher, then head teacher 10,000 francs, how much in all? Then hand out plus food is not worth 1,000 francs. We don't suffer. Ma Therese is writing from Mile 4. Good evening to you, Ma Therese. It's well, God is going to make a way. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The young panelist has perfect mastery of the system. It's intelligent and wise. More grace to him. Bison Ludovic is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Mr. Bison Ludovic, and thank you for encouraging us. That is also what we need as we walk out here. Apostle Ambe Valentine Ngwa, how do we get the best civil service?
Yes, Mr. Liu, I think first and foremost, before we will succeed, I think we have to study from those who have succeeded. Most of our government officials travel out of this country to other countries where they have very good civil service systems. I don't know why they don't copy from there. You go to countries like Holland, Norway, and other parts of the world, you will see everybody that embezzles anything is brought to book. You see a prime minister going to the office with bicycle, but the motorcade or the sirens that escort our deals, just deals here, before senior division of for governors, that's the money that they can increase a primary school teacher's salary. The amount of money we use to fuel the cars that accompany governors is the money that can increase a quarter register allowance. The amount of money that we invest in taking care of some protocols and some outstation programs for ministers out of the country is going to, if they can cut down some of those costs and increase the salary of the common man, I think that crime wave will reduce. For instance, Magufuli said, I will not allow any minister travel first class anymore and go and represent us out of the country. Let our ambassadors in the country speak on our behalf there and send us report back to the country here. That cut down the cost. The amount of money invested to send ministers out of the country for different assignments. I think if those costs that we incur in investing on some of these state authorities are reduced and the common man's salary is increased, it's going to better up the civil status. And then if at all you are well paid and rigorous laws are put in place for any form of corruption, they will deal with the individuals who are caught. But sometimes you may even pity the person who steals because his left will not than to steal. You can't give rats to a granite. You cannot give granites to a rat and expect the rat not to eat it. Most of our civil servants are very desperate. I'm telling you the truth. They are desperate. They are financially broke. Those are people that before the 20th of the month, they are dry. They have at least 10 days to go in the wilderness before they catch up with the next salary again. And then worst of it, they are not permitted to do business. How do you expect them to survive? And that one is so much pressure on them. They have children to send to school. They have houses to pay bills. They have health issues to take care of. And if you put all these things together, realize that the amount of money given to them is very, very bad. So to me, they should cut down the cost, reduce some offices, and then all these outstation from ministers from one country to another, ambassadors should represent us there, give us the feedback, and then if there's a need, they can discharge somebody. All these motorcades that our ministers take around and governors and left to right, it should reduce it and increase the standard of living of common civil servants. Okay. Because I think if properly paid, it will reduce corruption.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. To all in the house, it is a nice program of today telling Cameroonians what kind of system we have been living in. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Achu Muye from Bengui. I have a brother who is working in the diplomatic service and due retirement 8 years ago and has done all he can to go rest, but the powers that be can't relieve him. He has written to hierarchy to be replaced to no avail. What a government where youth should come and revitalize the government machinery. Greetings from this end. I'm George in Douala. I have a friend who passed ENAM by merit, both practical and orals, after writing for over 4 years, and all the 4 times he passed the written session. Good evening to you in the studio. I'm Kalista Ngum from Bamenda. We ought to collect our own 50,000 signed by President Paul Biya for 2020-2021 HND. But in Yaoundé, the list for HND in Northwest region was not on the board. only that for the Southwest and other regions. When my friend got to the office, he was asked to go outside and check on the list, whereas there is no list outside. So what happens to those of the Northwest? I need my 50,000 francs. Okay, I'm sure something is not right somewhere, and that is going to be fixed. Please, Mr. Lekunze, we have come to the end of this edition of the program. Maybe you have one last word.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Thank you, our listeners. One thing that I'm going to say is that we, as Cameroonians, we did not write applications to become Cameroonians. We were born as Cameroonians. This country is our country, and collectively we should work in building this country. We should support the powers that be. We should give contributions. I'm encouraging the youths to stand in positions, especially in the politics. I'm encouraging the youths to know that no matter the level of corruption, as some people put, there is merit in everything that we do. We should copy good examples. We should be good examples ourselves, and we should be encouraged. We should know that being encouraged or being motivated pays a lot, and if we are motivated, at the end we are going to come out with the positive results. We thank everybody for their contributions, and we pray that next time we are going to make it better. Thank you.
We want to thank you, Dr. Nick, for coming, despite the tight traffic.
Oh, thank you very much. I was looking at my phone here, and Greg from America, he sent a story coming from Baghdad,
yes,
and it's about values.
We are out of time, Doctor.
It's about values.
Yeah.
I don't really have very much time, as you say. It's about values. Just to say that, just to back Lekunze here, to say that we have to grow a country of values. If we don't have those positive values that we live by, and we keep doing just things the way we want to, we will never get anywhere. A country will only grow if we have positive values that we all abide by. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to Apostle Ambe for coming.
Yes, let me take this opportunity and invite those who are still to register for the Agro Seminar taking place tomorrow in Tico Council Hall. Registration, you can get in contact with me through 670-749844. 670-749844. The seminar starts on Friday in the morning. We're going to be training on fish cultivation, fish farming, poultry, piggery, and crop cultivation.
Okay, we want to thank you all who took time off to come for this edition of the program, and all of you who took time off also to watch it. We thank Desmond and Eli for production. Tomorrow, we understand that Tumfor, Barrister Nico, Halley, and others, other members of the Bilingualism Commission, in the Northwest Southwest regions for a campaign against hate speech and xenophobia. We're going to be discussing what they are doing in Bamenda and Boya to also help educate ourselves about the ills of these ills of our society. We are also going to be looking at other issues touching on our national life with panelists that are going to be available for tomorrow's edition of Prime Hour. Thank you all for watching. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.
Black